I just want to mention that we had a caller on the break said that they missed part of our program. How can they listen to it again? And you can always listen to the podcast replays, this episode or any episode, if you go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and click on the radio tab. And you can also watch the video of us in studio
later that week. Yes, we had a question about peace lilies earlier in the show, and
for what I can understand, it's kind of hard to hear the caller, but she is having issues with her peace lilies turning brownish, yellowish on the leaves, and that's typically with peace lilies. That's a sign of root rot. So if you're having root rot, what you would do is you remove the plants from whatever soil they're in. You would kind of shake whatever is on those roots off. You could even run some water over those roots.
Try to clean the roots.
Kind of clean the roots, and then you would plant them in fresh soil. And then you don't want to overwater them. Sometimes what happens with lilies in general is they get oversaturated, and that causes the issue.
Some people love their plants too much with water and essentially kills them that way. We had an email come in from twvgshow@gmail.com. Elizabeth wants to know, she's got a question about making sauerkraut. Hey, I was just wondering if you can use red cabbage to make sauerkraut as well as the green variety. Thanks very much.
You can. You certainly can. Yes, you can use the red versus the green variety. Red cabbage to me is a little bit more heat, I guess.
I don't think it is, but it's a very unique color to it. It's that very darkish purple color but you do not have to do them separate, correct? We can do it together. We can mix them together.
We can mix them together
and have a very colorful sauerkraut.
Yep.
With that. Any tips on making sauerkraut?
Just find a reliable source as to how, and I don't really want to get into fermentation right now.
Okay, but find a reliable source in which we can go with. So let's see here. Why haven't my hydrangeas bloomed this year? What's wrong with them? They bloomed fine the last several years.
So if your hydrangeas have bloomed, this wouldn't be an issue, but if they've never bloomed, it's possible you picked the wrong hydrangea for the area, for your zone. If they continue to bloom and you have an issue this year, it's typically because of over pruning. A lot of times you may have pruned them too short. They won't bloom this year, but hopefully they'll bloom next year. Or if you had too hard of a freeze over winter, that can inhibit growth of a lot of plants.
Let's see here. My apple trees have not bloomed yet. Why not? I have several that have bloomed, and I have 2 that did not bloom this year. What could be the issue?
A lot of times it's because of lack of pollination. If it's just 1 or 2 trees, it could be, if you have a set of trees growing and maybe those 2 trees are in a lower lying area, it could be too much fertilization, too much nitrogen. If you fertilize those trees and the runoff continues to go into those trees, though, that could be
like if it was at the bottom of the hill.
Like a hill.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because that nitrogen will increase the growth of the trees, but not assist with the blooming.
As we see with vegetation like tomatoes or peppers, a lot of green growth, very little to no production.
Yep. If that tree is not as hardy as the other trees, it could have gone into survival mode over the winter and not came back out from it. So you can also, if you ever have tree problems, tree issues, what have you, we're definitely glad to help answer general questions, but definitely reach out to somebody like an arborist.
A certified arborist, not Bob's tree cutting service that may be here this week and gone the next.
Because that's their jam. Like they do the trees, so that's what they do.
I've got purple African violets that I keep in my living room, and they bloom only at Christmas, but my friends have them that bloom year-round. I water and feed them each week. What is the issue with my African purple violets?
So I actually did a lot of research on this because I don't know anything about African violets.
And you learned, and we learned together.
It turns out that those plants need like the correct balance of light to bloom year-round. So typically, like most things, you're going to plant them in a south or east-facing window, and that's good for those African violets. But if it's too much light, they're not going to bloom. If it's too little light, so it makes sense that they only bloom at Christmas time because that's when the winter equinox is, and that's when we get those shorter days. So I think she's giving them too much light. So she may have to move them.
Or figure out where her friends have got them placed in their home.
Or even like diffuse the light or something, what have you.
To get the plant to the right balance. Let's see here. I'm a new potato grower, and I've noticed little green tomato-like fruits hanging from the plant. What is this?
Well, first of all, do not eat those. Don't eat anything in your garden if you don't know what it is.
Proper identification across the board. Doesn't matter.
Yep. But definitely don't eat those. And those are seed pods. So I think if you save those seeds, you could grow a potato from
It's a true seed potato potato seed. It takes a very long time to do that. That's why we grow from the chunks of potatoes when we plant in the spring. But there are groups that focus on the pure seed potato in that. And also, for the potato, that is a defense mechanism. Those are poisonous for human consumption and many animals that that would choose to eat them. So we want to avoid eating them or having, the saving the seeds.
I just want to correct myself when I was talking about the African violets. It's winter solstice, not winter equinox. That could be confusing. But definitely, if you have an issue with the plant, sometimes it is the lighting.
Yes, there it is. So with the African violets, but yeah, it's pretty neat. You can have them growing in your home and getting them to bloom multiple times a year for that when it comes to the thing there. Real quickly on the potato thing, as I was getting back to that, I wanted you to correct that. They are, you just ignore them. Not all varieties put the seed pod on. Some do.
Yeah, just...
Mike would like to know if he can cherry tomatoes with the skins on and then remove the skins whenever he wants to use them. And the answer is you cannot can cherry tomatoes, or any tomatoes that matter, with the skins on. It is not safe to do such and is not recommended by the Ball Blue Book and other reputable canning resources for that. So you need to remove the skin prior to canning them. I have some container basil that is not looking so healthy. It looks droopy, and the color has gone from a dark green to a light green. It is in a 10-gallon grow bag. Can you help me? Well, certainly we can help you. This is the telltale signs of nutrient deficiency. Anytime a plant is in a container, it is much more susceptible to lack of nutrients, even if you put great compost in or potting soil in that container at the start of the season. The reason being is because of the watering process. It filters out that nutrients that the plant needs. In the traditional ground, there's a lot of microbes and worms, and there's not like a drainage area. It kind of all sits there. With the container, you're continually watering, and that continually pulls that nutrients out of the soil as you water and it rains. So a couple of things in which you can do. You can feed your plants all growing season with a slow release fertilizer, like a Dr. Earth. You just want to work it in the top inch or so at the recommended rate and time for that. If it's in a position that your basil plant is now, where the discoloration is occurring, the slow release fertilizer is not going to be quick enough to pick up for the plant to utilize and to fix the problem now. So you want to go to a liquid fertilizer, or organic means preferably, and water it in at the recommended rate. The liquid fertilizer is more readily available to be picked up by the roots, so it can start immediately fixing that deficiency that the plant is dealing with. And you would follow the rates, and it will help turn that plant around. Now, on the basil plant, if you have some very yellow leaves or even brown spotted leaves on the lower portions of the plant, go ahead and remove them altogether. Take some of the really discolorated leaves off of the plant. That will lessen the stress on the plant, so whenever you fertilize it with the liquid fertilizer, it will be able to focus the energy on the younger, tender leaves and those tough old leaves that are discolorated. It will not, you don't have to worry about it, because you're going to remove them off the plant and you're helping the plant re-establish itself.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.